Hello everyone, and welcome back to another RODANE mini, where today I'm just gonna review Dune. I mean, what else do you want? Like, Dune is out. I saw it in theaters. It's actually the first movie I've seen in theaters since like 2019. Ugh. No, it's the last movie. It's the first movie I've seen in theaters since Parasite, back in Christmas 2019. So I went into the pre-premiere of my local theater for Dune, the news movie by acclaimed director Denis Villeneuve. Yeah, I would say he's acclaimed. Famous for movies like Prisoners and Arrival and Blade Runner, the latter two pretty important to this discussion. But before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about what is Dune. So, Dune is a famous sci-fi novel released in the 60s, I believe, by Frank Herbert. Been made into a couple of adaptations, including a David Lynch movie from 1984, I believe, that even he denounces and is really bad.
Get real.
And a miniseries in the early 2000s that I have not seen, but have seen clips from, and it looks like what you would expect from like early 2000s sci-fi epics in a miniseries format. Yeah, Game of Thrones this isn't. But yeah, this is the newest adaptation of the first Dune novel, and not even that. It is like, from my understanding, I've never read the original novel, but from my understanding, this is like about half of the original novel. It opens with part one, and it tells the story of this galactic empire in the year 10,000, uh, where humanity has conquered the stars using a substance known as spice, and we follow these great houses under an emperor who deal and wine, and it's Game of Thrones in space, basically. And we mainly follow the Atreides, specifically Paul Atreides, the young prince, whose family is being given custodianship over the desert planet of Arrakis, which is where this spice is being harvested. Given over custodianship from the previous family that held it, which was the Harkonnens, who are mortal enemies of the Atreides and wants them dead, and they're in cahoots with the Emperor. So Paul, our young lead, is becoming a young man. He must go to Arrakis and fulfill his destiny as the One. This is very much an old school chosen one narrative, and the movie doesn't really do much to change that. I'm assuming it's a big part of the novel, but it does do an interesting framework when it comes to Arrakis. Again, I don't know if this is part of the novel, but they frame the arrival on Arrakis a lot as basically colonialism. Like they are invading this planet from the inhabitants, the Fremen, um, and sort of taking their land. And yeah, like Duke Leto, played by Oscar Isaac, who is Paul's dad, has noble intentions of like we will work together and we will become, uh, frenemies. But yeah, it is very much a yeah, we're invading your land and taking your resources, and we're just gonna leave you alone. Hey, uh, and I like that framing. I like it that they're acknowledging that this is it's a bad thing, and it sort of leads further into the story. Of course, I'm not going to spoil too much. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I liked and what I didn't like about this movie. And when I say didn't like, I'm not going to say that parts of it was really bad. This is mostly just nitpicks. So the good stuff is the production. Generally, the acting is fantastic. It has a pretty damn impressive cast, situated by Timothy Chalamet as Paul Atreides and his mother, Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson. Both do an excellent job of giving some emotional attachment to these characters, although not as much as I would love, because this is a very, like, it's a big sci-fi epic. It can be a little bit dry sometimes. Pun not intended when in regards to sand. The writing is pretty good. There's a lot of concepts they need to show and explain, like what is a Bene Gesserit. I don't know, but we get told, and there's the entire flora and fauna of Arrakis that sort of gets some mention, and the Fremen and their culture. gets sort of showcased, and it's all very beautiful. I believe it's the same cinematographer as Arrival, and it looks really damn good, and it looks visually distinct from Blade Runner. You know, they're both sci-fi epics in a way. I would actually say that you could kind of call this a stepping stone after Arrival and Blade Runner, because it's sort of the epic scale of Blade Runner mixed with the sort of surreal editing, a little bit spirituality of Arrival. So if you like those movies, I'm pretty sure you're gonna love this one as well. What don't I like though? And again, these are just nitpicks, honestly. It's very CG in the beginning. Of course it is. It's a big production. It has to present a world. But it, especially when it comes to Arrakis, like until a certain very stormy plot point happens, Arrakis doesn't feel like a real place. It feels like just CGI desert. And I know they shot in Jordan for this, and for the longest time I was like, why didn't you just shoot in like the volume the same as the Mandalorian? But then they do stuff and then they get out into the desert and then you suddenly are like, okay, now I can see you actually shot on location. What else? It's, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a part one, and it feels like a part one. It feels like an introduction to this world, a setup. And that's probably my biggest problem, is that if we don't get a part two, and I do hope we get a part two, then this movie will sort of be pointless in a way. Like, stuff happens, there are exciting action sequences and good acting and spectacular vistas and nice designs and things like that, but still, like, I do hope we get that part too. I would say though, it's sort of, because it's so epic and because it's so big and because it's so long, it's 2.5 hours. It's sort of, you lose that humanity in it. And I think the actors, specifically somebody like Jason Momoa and Rebecca Ferguson, do a really good job of bringing humanity to all these characters. And I want to see more of them, but sometimes it can get a little lost in all of the CGI and all of the like formalities of being an epic. It sort of reminds me a bit of why I really love the Lord of the Rings movies, because they were able to really balance this idea of like characters you love and want to root for with the epic scale of, you know, Tolkien's world. And this movie is 90% there, but it's not 100% there. And that's, again, it's a nitpick. That is just my experience with the movie. Some people might go in and have a better experience. I will say personally, I prefer Blade Runner as more sort of methodical, philosophical discussions to Dune's more spiritual epic. But it's cool. It's really cool. It's cool to see a new world brought to life, and we don't get to see these epic fantasy worlds or epic sci-fi worlds, sorry, uh, brought to life that often. And I fear the mainstream audience will look at this and go like, "What the fuck is this?" But why do they wear silly hat? Why is Stellan Skarsgård big? He's big, and whoo boy. Uh, but damn, I hope they give it a chance, because I want to see part two. I want to see. They have an HBO Max series in the works about the Bene Gesserit, and I kind of want to see that as well. Yeah. So if I were to give this a score, I think I rated it 7 out of 10 on IMDb, which I think is pretty fair. Like, it's like, I think in hindsight, if we ever get part two, then it may go up. But as it stands right now, as this is the only thing we have, then a 7 out of 10 is pretty good from somebody who hasn't read the books that this is based on. So yeah, that is just my thoughts on Dune. Spoiler free, and I hope you will go see it, because I want that part two, and I want this thing to succeed. So leave a like on this video and comment. What are your thoughts? Did you see Dune? Are you excited for it? Do you also think that Hans Zimmer's score is a little bit much sometimes? It's a personal thing. Uh, and yeah, we will see you in the next one. So bye.